Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Ronnie J Cole II with knowledge, wealth, wisdom, and real estate. So today's topic for today, we're going to talk about something that's very important to me. And that particular topic is the student loan crisis in America. Did you know that student loan debt in this country has reached over $1.6 trillion in debt? And that was of June 2019. And we're approaching $2 trillion in 2020. So stay tuned. All right, welcome back, guys. So we're discussing the student loan debt crisis. And if you just heard me, you heard me correct. We are approaching almost $2 trillion in student loan debt in this country. Almost 45 million people in the United States have student loan debt. Did you know the average student loan debt in this country is around $30,062? Which is actually about $6,300 more than it was in 2009. So over the past 10 to, I would say 11 years, we've gone up 26% in the increase in the amount of student loan debt that we have taken on as a country. Those numbers are amazing. One more thing is 2 out of 10 students who take out student loans and who go into debt still owe money and are behind on their payments. So every 10 people you walk past on the street, 2 of those folks have student loan debt that they've probably been paying on for who knows how long, 5, 10 years, probably 15, 20. That's just the times we live in. And there's another important point that I want to discuss about student loan debt. And first, let me preface this by saying I believe in that we're all a collective people. I believe that we are Americans first and we're not divided. However, I do want to make sure that I give you guys important information that will also shed some light on racial disparity in America and among many households in the country. So one study that I found was that 6 years after students enrolled in college, their default rates varied based on their background. So 13% of white borrowers in repayment were in default. 20% of Hispanic and Latino borrowers were in default. And 32% for Black, African American student loan borrowers were in default. And again, this study is based on students who were enrolled in 2011 and 2012. So they had to give a little bit of time as well to kind of follow these folks. But that's huge disparity. I mean, you're going from 13% to 32%. That is a huge jump among households and backgrounds for people in this country. I have a few more tidbits which I want to tell you about. So according to the New York Times, recent Black graduates of 4-year colleges on average owe $7,400 more than their white peers. And 4 years after graduation, they almost owe $53,000 in student loan debt, almost twice as much as their white counterparts. Once again, folks, I'm not saying this to try to bring a divide and say one over the other, but I just want to be able to articulate some information based on education. What's the word I'll use? It's education. My last point, white men paid off 44% of their student loan balance. White women paid off 28% of their student loan balance. Black men saw their balances grow by 11% and Black women saw their loan balances grow by 13%. And this was a study that was done of students 12 years after they entered college, just to kind of find out how they were in their process of paying off debt. So once again, I'll say that this is not about white, Black, Latino, Asian American, none of that. This is just to show that some communities have more education in regards to debt and how to pay off debt than maybe some others do. And, you know, this is America. This is what happens. This is history. So all we can do is learn from it and then teach each other so that we don't fall into the same patterns as we progress as a people. So just kind of want to give you guys some history about how student loans and this whole education thing came about. In 1862, there was the Morrill Act that was passed, and it was basically an act to help build land grant institutions and colleges and higher education. And this allowed for farmers and working class Americans to have access to education. And because of this access to education, what happened was if you were trained as educators and also as religious leaders within your community, then you were able to go to school tuition free. So this is how we start. Then let's jump forward a few years and go to 1944 when the GI Bill was passed. This GI Bill allowed veterans to receive money to cover their tuition as well as degrees and certification programs. And amongst some other things in terms of being able to purchase homes, and also they were able to get a stipend because of the GI Bill. Now, what I will say, because of this GI Bill, this was argued heavily in Congress in 1944. They were arguing in 1944 the same way they're arguing now in 2020. And they were arguing over how much to pay these veterans that were coming back from World War II. So again, people, this stuff is nothing new. Congress has been at each other's throats, lobbying against we should do this, we should do versus doing that for years. And we shouldn't get all freaked out about the Republicans and Democrats vying for position, because this has been since both parties were established in the 17 and 1800s. So just wanted to throw that tidbit in there. Now, in 1958, they passed the National Defense Education Act. This act was basically motivated because of Russia and Russia getting to space. And if you recall, they sent up the Sputnik satellite into space, and therefore Americans were like, hey, wait a minute, we've got to catch these folks. And so this particular Education Act was put in place in order to bolster science, mathematics, as well as pretty much your STEM programs, so that we could catch and gain and catch up to the Russians. And one of the Act's provisions was the creation of the National Defense Student Loan Program, which later became known as the National Direct Loan Program, which later became known as what you and I probably know who went to college as the Federal Perkins Loan System. This was a federally backed loan system, and it granted loans from $1,000 up to a amount of $5,000. Now, these loans were repaid over the span of a decade following graduation, and they carried a 3% interest rate. So as you can see, this is when the government started to get their hand into the student loan process and say, hey, wait a minute, we can make money off of this. So it was no longer about educating our people, educating our students and country. This now has become a way for the government to make additional money. And by 1970, there were about 8.6 million students enrolled in college and who were starting to take out debt. And around this time in the 70s, that's when programs such as Sally Mae all of a sudden got on the map. And they started out really well, but then as we know, we're in the debacle now with giving student loans to anybody. The problem with student loans today, kids are going to college and taking out student loans for degrees that don't even make sense. The amount of money that kids are taking out these days doesn't cover what they'll make once they graduate. That's the biggest problem. So you have kids going to college, taking out $30,000 worth of student loans, $50,000 worth of student loans, $100,000 worth of student loans, and they're getting out of school and they're not even making this amount of money in 1, 2, let alone 10 years in order to be able to cover these debts that they've taken out. And then once you add in the fact of how interest hits these bad boys, what may have once been a $100,000 student loan may now have ballooned to a $125,000 student loan. Don't quote me on these prices because I didn't give you an interest rate, or quote me on these numbers, but you get the gist of what I'm trying to say. It's great. And let me say, I think college is awesome. Without student loans, I probably wouldn't have gotten an education. I was able to get my bachelor's and I was also able to get my master's degree. So student loans did help me. But for folks who may not know of a financial way in order to go to college, then student loans becomes the only option. But you're giving an 18-year-old the ability to make a decision that's going to affect the next 10, 15, 20 to 25 years of their life. That's what this is. Debt sucks, people. Debt is not great. I hate that. I really do. And so, I think college is really good if you're going to become like a doctor, an engineer, a lawyer, what else? If you want to become maybe a software engineer or a programmer, and even nowadays, you don't even have to go to school to be a programmer. Actually, here in Georgia, there's a great school called the Georgia General Assembly, and you can go there and take classes in data analytics. You can go there and take classes in software development, and they're like 12 to 18-month courses, and you come out making $80,000 to $100,000. And you can go and work for some great companies like Home Depot and Facebook and Twitter and some of these other major companies and Cox Communications that are based here in Atlanta. So I personally believe you don't have to go to school for everything. For folks who are majoring in some business fields and majoring in psychology and sociology and all this stuff, don't take out student loans, people. Find a way to pay for college without having to take out these loans, which are going to put you in a financial bind for several years of your life. You should be looking up scholarships out of the wazoo. Yes, I know. In order to get into many fields, a degree was almost like a prerequisite that you had to have just to get your foot in the door so you can go and work in the mailroom. Yeah, I know. So, and then, do this whole great American dream of working your way up from the mailroom to the CEO's office, but with a $40,000 to $50,000 weight around your neck and shackled to your ankles of trying to do it. So you're then stuck on a job once you get there because you're too scared to leave because you economically can't afford to do so. Guys, as a society, I think we've gotten away from learning about trades, things that are going to be here regardless. I mean, let's look at what's going on right now. We're in a pandemic. We're in COVID-19, people. And because of the pandemic, a lot of people have lost their jobs. Folks who had a lot of, these fantastic careers, a lot of white collar jobs have been lost because of the coronavirus. But what have you seen? What jobs have you seen that have continued to emerge and to grow and to expand? Jobs like construction, jobs like plumbing, jobs like welding, jobs like becoming an electrician. You can make good money doing these things, like 6-figure salaries. If you're on your grind and you got a little customer service acumen, you can make good money. So We teach our kids that if you don't go to college, you're nothing. And I think we as parents sometimes are to blame for this because, you know, you get around your friends and you're like, well, my kid went to, the University of Georgia and my child, she's going to Duke University. And my kid's going to Stanford. But your kid's going to Stanford to study left-handed puppetry. Your kid's going to Duke to get a degree in English. Your kid's going to, I don't know, University of Texas. And they're going there because they want to study, music. I'm not downing any of these fields. What I'm downing is people who have to utilize debt in order to get these degrees that by the time they matriculate through school aren't going to be able to pay that debt back, which then may cause them to default, which then may cause them to get bad marks on their credit report, which then may cause them to have to go into possible bankruptcy. And see, student loan default is one of them that you don't want to get. It's up there with bankruptcy. You don't want to get student loan default on you because you're not getting that off your report. The government doesn't play, as I'm sure many of you already know. So I know this video is going a little long. I told you I'm passionate about this particular subject. But again, I just want a lot of the young folks out there to understand and to know that, there are other jobs out there. There are other ways to get an education. There are other ways to succeed in life without having to necessarily go to college or without having to take out student loan debt. There are so many different scholarships that are out there that people can apply for. I mean, you hear about this year after year after year of how there are thousands of scholarships that people don't even sign up for or apply for. And one person fills out an application and gets it because they get it by default. You guys know I listen to Dave Ramsey a lot, and the guy, Anthony O'Neill, is one of the personalities on the program, and he actually created a book called Debt Free Degree. And in that particular book, he talks about and gives you some other ideas and some other programs and scholarship programs that you need to look after in order to try to avoid going into debt for college. So, this is a tough subject because many of us want the American dream, but we have to pay for it. And then we realize the American dream becomes the American nightmare. I also want to tell folks, you guys have to explore other avenues. Community college is not bad, folks. You can go to community college for 2 years, get the basics out of the way, pay, 25% of what you would have paid if you'd have gone to one of these big 4-year schools or a private school. Hell, even in California, if I'm not mistaken, they can go to community college for free. Who passes up free? Then once you get into your actual major, then you can move towards the larger institution, which may have more programs and funding for you to do your research and to learn and to grow in your particular field of study. And I hate to say it right now, what's happening in this particular country, we're all so excited about Joe Biden becoming president, but it's because he's thrown this bone out of saying, well, I'm going to get rid of student debt. I'm going to get rid of student debt. And why are we waiting on the government to solve our problem? I know I'm switching around a little bit here, but why are we waiting on the government to solve our problem? If we're in debt, then you know what you got to do to get out of debt? Guess what? You got to work, baby. You got to do something. You got to come up with a plan in order to get through. What I want you guys to know is before you rely on Biden and Congress and everyone else to bail you out, guess what Trump did? And I'm not saying I'm either for Trump or against Trump, but I just want to give you guys another factoid of information. Trump, him and his good pal, Betsy DeVos, the education secretary, passed a measure on August 21st, 2019 that forgave student loan debt for disabled veterans. And if I'm not mistaken, in the article that I read, it was around about 30,000 people that were able to take advantage of this program. Now, if you apply that 30,000 to the 45 million people that I just said are in student debt, that's not even a drop in the bucket, people. You know, that's nothing. Student loan debt is a major issue in our country. I want you guys to know that. And remember, the CARES Act is ending on December 31st, 2020. In less than 29 days right now, the CARES Act is ending. Therefore, the student loan forbearance program will no longer be in effect. Therefore, January 1, you will be required. Your loans will go into repayment. One of my tidbits I'll tell you guys, you better hurry up and call whoever your student loan servicer or provider is and ask them to put you on a income-based driven payment plan. And in some of those payment plans, especially with everything that's going on, you might pay as little as $0 a month right now. That might be the best option. Clearly, our lame duck Congress, clearly our lame duck president is not going to act to put any measures in place to extend some of these benefits into the new year to give the incoming president time to enact his own programs. And actually, I take that back. I have seen some recent articles how they are trying to come up with a bipartisan bill that will provide some additional relief. And I think it was a little under $1 trillion. This new bill may have been about $950 or so billion that they're putting together. But that hasn't passed. That hasn't gone through. This is talk. This is hearsay, people. Who knows if this will happen? So I've gone really long today. I just want you guys to know your options. I want you guys to, one, realize that it's up to you in order to succeed. 3, I want you guys to realize that student loans suck. 4, I want you guys to realize, especially for any young kids who are listening, who may be in high school or who haven't got to that 12th grade year when they're getting ready to go to college. Folks, know what you want to do. Figure it out. 9th grade, 10th grade, start going into some, try working or taking an internship or doing something, figure out what you have a passion for. If that's going out and working on cars, then be the best auto mechanic or whatever that you can be and go out and make bank doing it. Go work for Mercedes. So I'm just saying, if you like doing things with your hands.
I'm not sure what to do with my hands.
Be good just to hold them down by your side. Yeah, great.
Well, we're real happy with what was going on, and at the end of the day, you got to be happy.
If you like doing things with your hands, then go for it. Try something different. College, number one, isn't for everyone, but student loans suck and they're not for anyone. If you don't have to take them, don't. You'll hurt yourself. And what else do I have to say? Do what you got to do, guys. We're rolling into 2021. This train isn't stopping. Hopefully we'll have a COVID-19 vaccine soon. Remember, with everything going on right now, don't buy expensive Christmas gifts. Don't put them on your credit cards. What else am I forgetting? Don't put them on your credit cards. And, you can, if you want to get something for your family, just get a Hallmark card. On the Hallmark card, write, "I love you, family member," and then put 2020 on it, and then say, you know what that means, love whoever. People will understand this here, folks. So I thank you guys so much for bearing with me and listening to me rant and rave for 22 minutes and 43 seconds. Again, this is Ronnie J Cole II with EXP Realty, knowledge, wealth, wisdom, and real estate. Hey, remember to subscribe to my page, hit the notification bell. Remember to give me a thumbs up. If you have comments, feel free to hit me up in the comments below. I am happy to have constructive criticism. If you don't like what I said, hey, that's fine. Let's discuss it. What I do say is, don't come on here cursing me out or anyone else out. We are all people and we can talk to each other with common sense. So again, this has been Ronnie J Cole II. Hit me up, guys. I'm on Facebook and Instagram and all those great channels. So I thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you so much for listening to my page. And I hope you guys have an excellent and fantastic day.